In Northern California, a composer sits in her studio with the waves of the Pacific crashing behind her.
Here, let me see if I can turn on the BUCHLA for you. Okay, so...
Suzanne Ciani is one of the pioneers of electronic music, whose work with the BUCHLA synthesizer from the 1960s, named after its inventor, Don BUCHLA, opened up new worlds of possibility and also led to the creation of sounds that are indelibly etched on the acoustic memories of anyone who lived in the 1970s and 1980s. The sounds of adverts for Coke and Pepsi, all those bottles popping and fizzing.
Coca-Cola Pop and Pour.
They were created by Suzanne, as well as, much more importantly, an entire genre of electronic music that was sumptuous and organic. She also made music for acoustic instruments as well. But now she's back to the BUCHLA and a new version of the synthesizer that she stuffs into the holds of airplanes and tours all over the world, including to London, where she played the Proms last year and performs at the Barbican and King's Place in the next few weeks. But now, though, well, she's in California.
I'm about an hour north of San Francisco on the ocean. It doesn't look like the ocean because there's kind of a beautiful inlet where I am. And so it's a nice sheltered bay. But the waves are very good and it's filled with surfers.
I kind of want to start there because that's such a beautiful picture you've painted in my imagination. Where I'm going with this is the relationship between nature and technology in your work, because I think it seems that so much of your work, although it's using technology, has actually in the end nothing to do with it at all. You're actually trying to find a way of being in the natural world of sound. Does that bear any relationship to...
If you think about it, the wave paradigm transcends all of it because sound is waves. And those waves are the same waves that I see out in the ocean. And the sound of the waves is a rhythm that is, a natural, almost like the breathing of the planet. And I've always been attracted just to the shape of the wave as a compositional form. The energy that rises, it gets to a climax and then recedes. That soothing, consistent flow.
When you first immersed yourself in sound making with, as it turned out, machines, did you feel then this organic connection with the material of sound and even with the spiritual dimension of it that you've talked about, for you personally or maybe in a deeper way as well?
Well, for me, the machine was actually a life form. It was responsive. It was communicative. It was alive. So from the beginning, when I worked with my BUCHLA, which is the first machine that I had, and my favorite to this day, I kept it on all the time. I wouldn't shut it off because that would cut its life. It would kill it, And there it was kind of purring in the room and communicating with the lights, what it was thinking, what was going on inside. So there was a very thin line behind the idea of its being alive and it's being a machine that we think of as something cold and mechanical. But I never did think that way.
At that time, though, it's still... Well, there are musicians who you've worked with. I think of someone like Holly Herndon, who's also spoken to. We think about all these debates about AI, and creators are telling us all the time now about these two-way relationships with technology. You've been having this dialogue for decades, Suzanne. I mean, so it's not a new concept, that actual dialogue with the machine.
No, it's not. And, I go back to the Artificial Intelligence Lab at Stanford University, where I studied with John Chowning and Max Matthews. Max was the father of computer music. And this whole way of thinking was very dominant then, that the machine... Oh, wait, my kitty just came in. Sorry.
It's beautiful.
She
sounds beautiful.
She's an interloper.
That's okay.
Talk about technology. My cat has a radio collar that allows it to come in and out.
Yeah.
But if it sat near the door, then any cat could come in and out. And so this cat started coming in and couldn't get out.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had to adopt it. Okay, it's being quiet now.
That's beautiful. Technology leading to new relationships. Sorry for that. It's an unpredictability in the system, which is, after all, again, the way you talk about actually those years working with Matthews and Channing is about actually, feeding instructions and not knowing what the result's going to be and being surprised and delighted by the response you get.
Well, I wouldn't emphasize too much the unpredictability of it all, because actually it is, very controllable, and we love the extemporaneous thing that happens as well. There's room for the dance, but it's not just a, blind stab in the dark when you're creating something. You really know. So there's a predictability about technology, and there's also a gift that comes. Just before I made this, U-turn and came back to electronics, by popular demand, they kind of got me out of my cave. And I had written a new album.
Was that
when all of this started.
Was that an acoustic album?
Yeah, it was to be acoustic and electronic. And it was classically based. It was kind of in the, in the mode of a lot of the studio albums that I've done. So when I went back to the BUCHLA, just as I had done historically, I couldn't also play the piano. There's a little switch in me that switches when I go into electronics or when I go into BUCHLA land that forbids me to do anything traditional with the piano. So here I am. I'm almost 5 years into this new electronic experiment, and I'm really enjoying it. I didn't like the 200E when I started. I missed the 200.
No, I've seen you. There's a Red Bull Music Academy online where you obviously love the instrument, but you're also very clear about what its limitations are, and they're especially to do with it's the multitude. It's a duo as opposed to a multitude. Oh goodness, I've forgotten the name.
The MARF. The multiple arbitrary function generator,
which
as opposed to the dual.
Right.
Yes, very good. We're talking shop. That's really...
I wish that was the case.
Okay.
You're being very tolerant. But you've accommodated yourself to all of the quirks of the 200E.
Yes. I'm having so much fun with this, and it's an evolving thing. I don't... the funny thing is when I came back to the BUCHLA, I went back and studied my own cookbook, how to play the BUCHLA. And that's my starting point. So I'm actually very, very literally connected to my early days musically, because I'm using the same 4 sequences that I used in the 70s. And this is a testimony to really the techniques of composition with these machines. You need a starting point, and you have what I call raw material. But what evolves from that is completely open. It's like saying, to a classical composer, I'm going to give you 12 pitches. See what you can come up with. And it's infinite.
Suzanne Ciani, and you can see her with her beloved BUCHLA 200E at King's Place in London on the 26th of September. She's at the Barbican on the 19th of October.